Everybody say hi to Chem. Say hi, Chem Chem. Hi, Chem Chem. All right, we are on book 2, page 103. For Us. Tay. 10 July, year 22. I woke up, startled, because Junie was shaking my shoulder. Are you okay? I saw the worried look on his face, but I couldn't open my mouth to answer him. I had had countless nightmares, but this was the first time to feel fear like that. Empty and blank, I looked down at a towel he had handed me. When I gradually stopped sweating, I recalled where I was and how I got here. Last evening, I came to Junie's container to avoid my dad's drunken rage. I became afraid of falling asleep. It began when I realized my god-awful nightmares weren't just nightmares, but somehow linked to reality. Every dream was mind-boggling, especially the ones about Jin. The dreams seemed to be demanding some kind of answer from me, as if they were telling me that there was a problem and I had to fix it. But I couldn't do a thing on my own. In the dream, I jumped into a blazing fire. I saw Junie's container. Hired goons came brandishing iron pipes, and the people that lived in the containers ran away or were down on the ground. Among them, I saw Junie with a black mask on. He ran into a container, and then a boy was literally thrown out of it. The next moment, someone screamed, and the fire soared up from the inside of the container. Junie's not out yet. He's still in there. I let out a scream, but there were no sounds, no words. I wanted to run to him, but my feet were kicking in midair. Everything slowed down and I couldn't breathe. And someone was down on the ground. The people whispered, "Is he dead? Really dead?" The scene in the dream changed to Jin. He was sitting in the middle of a meeting room. From the window, he was gazing down at the night scene. Sitting on the sofa, he fixed his eyes on the window. His face was terrifyingly cold, and his soulless eyes were not really looking at anything. Youngji's stream was among the things he was looking at. Across the stream were apartment buildings in Munyeon City. Right below him was a line of brightly lit buildings. I saw a billboard for a canned coffee on one of the building rooftops, and behind it was a commercial building with a 4-leaf clover logo displayed on the second floor. The window rattled from a gust of wind outside. The old moon, looking like an upside-down crescent moon, hung in the sky. It looked as small as a clipped-off nail. Jin phoned someone, said a word or two, and hung up. A moment later, the light was turned off in every building. The world outside the window became pitch black in an instant. It was a fearful darkness, not because the world outside had become invisible, but as if the world had perished, not just the buildings or the city. Jin smiled, finding it satisfactory. And he stood up and walked over to the door. That was when our eyes met. No. I thought they had, but he passed me and walked out. Unable to move a muscle, I simply watched him walk away. "Can you find that place?" Junie asked, rubbing his chin. I shook my head. I saw Yangji's stream in the dream, but you could see that stream from any part of Songju. Think about it carefully. What floor do you think you were on? Anything eye-catching in the scenes outside that window? Or did you hear anything? Why, though? To that, Junie said, to go and find that place. I stared at him. The place? Why? Well, because... He didn't finish, but said, Tay, do you think that will really happen? Things you saw happen in your dream. Jin makes a phone call and Sungju becomes buried in darkness. No, disappears? I couldn't answer him right away. When I thought about what had happened so far, my nightmares did become reality. But I couldn't be sure it would be the same again. Junie said, You're not sure, are you? So let's go and see. If there's really that place, if it were really to happen, we need to find out what we should do. I nodded. There were lots of buildings. They looked like offices, not restaurants. I could look down on a 4 or 5 story high building. So the building I was in must have been at least 7 stories high. I saw a billboard for a canned coffee and a 4-leaf clover logo. Junie said, 4-leaf clover? That's a Mart logo near Hobie's orphanage. No, that's a 3-leaf clover. Really? I think I saw something like that somewhere, Junie puzzled and said. He suggested looking for that billboard. The area with lots of offices is near City Hall or the downtown area near Guangdong. We can start by looking for a 7-story building there. Let's go now since we have to cover a lot of areas. When we walked out of the container, the night wind felt cool. We got on the bus to City Hall first. How many buildings in Songju are 7 stories high, do you think? I don't know. A lot, I guess? A lot. Not just a lot. Like, a lot. How can you say it just like that? To that, Junie smiled and said, Oh, I know, but how else can you say that then? I doubted whether Junie really believed what I'd told him. Whether he was just going along with me without believing a word I said. Well, maybe that was why he could talk about it so casually. The bus went along the railway. The old town quickly grew distant, and soon we were in the area densely packed with buildings. We got off downtown near City Hall. From the bus stop, we took a sweeping look around. There were many tall buildings on both sides of the road, and more buildings in the next block as well, and countless billboards. I didn't know where to begin. Junie said, Let's go over there. You take that side, I'll take this side. We combed through both sides of the street. There were billboards for energy drinks, cookies, and insurance, and even a big screen with the news on it. I did see a billboard for a canned coffee, but not the same one in my dream. Junie asked, You said you saw Youngji's stream. Maybe it was a different stream. In a faraway city somewhere? I shook my head. It wasn't a different city. It was more or less a conviction I had. Junie, 11 July, year 22. We went up and down the different buildings all night. Could we really find the place? Zonked out in the plaza in front of City Hall, we looked up at the night sky. We could see only the right half of the moon. I remembered Tay mentioning the moon in his dream. The old moon, he said. There would be the old moon 20 days from now, and a month after that, and another month after that, and a year after that, and 10 years after that. It was impossible to figure out the timing of it just with the shape of the moon. I finished my drink, and after crumpling up the can, I said, There is one last place we should go and check. The last building wasn't it either. When we walked up to the rooftop, we couldn't see either a billboard for canned coffee or the 4-leaf clover logo. I didn't know Songju was this big, I said as I crisscrossed the rooftop. Me either. With way too many buildings, I wouldn't wish for anything else if I owned one floor of any building out there, Tay grumbled as he stood next to me. We stood side by side with our arms dangling over the rooftop rail. "Do you really believe what I told you?" I asked him. Over in the distance, red light glimmered as the sun was rising. It became bright all around, and it'd be stifling hot in no time. Because we'd been running around the whole time, sweating, I felt wet around my neck. Wiping away the sweat with my palm, I said, "When you believe something which you find hard to believe, that's really believing it." Not understanding what I'd said, Tay exclaimed in disbelief, "If you believe something, you believe it. If you can't believe something, you don't. What do you mean by believe something which you find hard to believe?" He looked down on Sungju. "I know. I don't know what I'm saying either. Anyway, let's go down." We walked across the rooftop and took the elevator to the ground. It was the start of a new day. Jin, 11 July, year 22. I looked around. My dad, the mayor of Songju, the people from the Scholarship Foundation, and the president of the construction company. They were all familiar faces. I sat in an empty seat next to Uncle Junho. The meeting got underway. I took out my notebook, but didn't jot anything down. I wasn't interested, nor was the meeting important. They talked about starting the redevelopment earlier. "With Area 3 pretty much cleared out, shouldn't we tear down the place now?" And the topic changed to the containers. Someone handed my dad a list of the container residents, but as he put it down, disinterested, he shot a glance at me. I'd seen the list in one of the time loops. It was on my dad's desk in the den. Junie's name on the list was circled in red. I knew then that my dad already knew Junie was one of the target residents to be cleared out on September 30th. I begged him, "Please stop this. Stop the demolition." And all he did was look at me once without even a refusal. I stammered out a couple words, but after simply standing there for a while, I left without getting anything out of it. The meeting was scheduled to end before lunch. I was unable to peel away from them by walking to the parking lot. I was able to peel away. I got to my car and rejected a phone call. The unexpected call was from the police department. I found a record from that day by going over the phone calls. I knew what was going on. The police officer said they'd received a call about a hit and run and wanted the black box video of my car from May 22nd. May 22nd was the day I had an accident on the way back from the beach. The officer said it was a hit and run, so it might be Jungkook's case. I couldn't believe it, but I had nothing to hide. I told him I'd do it. That night after the accident, I had the tires and engine checked at a nearby car center. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, but the center owner asked me a question in passing. "What happened?" And he took darting glances at me in the car. I said nothing, but there were unwarranted discontent and greed in his eyes. "Did you call the police?" When I asked on the phone, the center owner realized who I was and coughed. "I did tell you that I skidded against the guardrail. By giving false information to the police, you've damaged my reputation and hampered police business. Have you thought about that?" He was quiet. I could picture him realizing how he was in a pickle. I had gone overboard by mentioning reputation and hampering police business, but putting him in hot water wasn't so bad. Being strong and pretending to be strong are different, and people should know their place. "And you haven't even apologized." Only after hearing that did he say he must have made a mistake and then apologized. "You think an apology will solve this?" I hung up without waiting for an answer. Junie, 13 July, year 22. I roamed the city for 3 days, but had nothing to show for it. Why do you switch your work shift so often these days? When my boss at the gas station asked, I hung my head low. I yawned and looked around the office. Eyeing him, I cleaned the office with a rag. Morning came early when we were out wandering the city. Some buildings turned off the lights at night, so we had to pay extra attention not to miss anything. I turned around, hearing someone snoring, and it was my boss in the massage chair. I was trying to leave the office quietly when I saw a logo next to the headrest, a 4-leaf clover. Tay, is this what you saw? He texted me right away. That's right, where did you find it? The massage chair company had 6 marketing offices in Songju. They sold the chairs by letting people try them. One of the offices was inside a huge retail store, and one was located on a lower floor. I eliminated the office located in the building where you couldn't see the stream. That left 2, one downtown in Guangdong and the other near City Hall. Tay, 17 July, year 22. The typhoon arrived in the afternoon on the 14th. Before it did, we took a look at the 2 massage chair offices near City Hall and one in Guangdong. We couldn't find a canned coffee billboard, but we climbed up every nearby 7-story high building from where we can see a 4-leaf clover logo and Yangtze Stream. On the morning news that day, they said, Typhoon Plath. Yep, Typhoon Plath was approaching the southern coast. Plath meant goldfish in Thai. Sure. The typhoon was named Plath with the hope that it would pass quietly like a goldfish, like its namesake. Its size was small, but not the amount of rain. What had started as a drizzle soon turned into big sheets of raindrops. We visited different buildings with umbrellas, but soon we went around without them and then ended up getting into brawls. The downtown in Guangdong area was lined with bars and clubs where people got drunk, and out of drunkenness or anger, they got themselves into brawls. Seeing us soaking wet as we tried to walk up to the rooftop, they thought we were some juvies looking for trouble, kicked us out. The doors to the rooftops were often locked, and it was impossible to check the view from the staircase windows. The convenience store we went in to get instant cup noodles had their AC turned on too strong. The wet clothes clung to our skin, and our teeth chattered from the cold. Without a word, Junie and I stared at the rain outside the window, and neither of us mentioned quitting. Things got worse the next day. Because of the stormy wind, the windows had X marks taped on them, and there were small and big accidents caused by wind-blown signposts and newspaper stands. The news reported submerged areas, and road signs came loose and damaged some cars. Junie and I couldn't do a thing except stare at the rainy sky. Junie opened the online map on his phone. Looking at the road view, he checked the places we'd been to and hadn't been to, and he said, "We've combed through the downtown and City Hall area near the 4-leaf logo. We should search on the internet if there's another massage chair office." While Junie was checking, I looked up at the night sky. Rain was pouring down from the black sky. Maybe it was just a silly dream. Junie didn't even look up as he said, "Well, that'd be great, but what if it wasn't?" "But what if it wasn't?" I repeated in my head, and recalled how the lights of Songju vanished altogether at one instance. I wished I could remember more about the dream, but I couldn't. I squatted down next to Junie. "Tay, show me the pics that you took in front of the convenience store by City Hall." Sitting next to him, I took out my phone. As we roamed the city, we took pictures of places, and when I got home, I went through the pictures to see if I had missed anything. "No, not that one, but the one you took from the convenience store next to the movie theater." Junie pointed to a place in the road view. "Look, the pictures we took are different from the road view billboards." "So?" Our pictures are different because this road view was taken earlier this year. Well, that's what I mean. If there were a canned coffee billboard instead of this energy drink one, wouldn't this look like the scene you saw in your dream? I looked at the phone picture and back at the road view. If there was a canned coffee billboard there, then... But there wasn't a building near this place that was 7 stories high, Junie nodded. I don't remember seeing one, and there wasn't one in the road view either. But this one comes closest to what you saw in your dream. There isn't another place. Let's try here when the rain stops. I looked at him, feeling a bit odd. There were differences between the picture and the road view, and there was no 7-story building. More importantly, there was an energy drink billboard, not a canned coffee one. How could he explain these differences? Junie gazed at me as if to ask what was up. He said, "You said what you saw in your dream was the future. You said so yourself." Well, right, that's right, but it's still... What I'd seen in my dream did happen in reality. I'd said that to him because I experienced what I'd seen in my dream. But this dream hadn't happened yet. Because of that, I couldn't believe a canned coffee billboard would replace the energy drink. "Do you really think it will?" Junie nodded and said, "I do. If I didn't, and said something, and something were to happen, then I would..." And he stopped there. Jimin, 18 July, year 22. It was 9:45 at night. I had to wait 15 more minutes for Tae to get off work. I walked around outside the convenience store to kill time. Behind Songjujil Middle School, we used to climb this side of the school wall to skip classes or to wait for the others in the small park across from the store. I looked around the area. I hadn't been here for a while, but it hadn't changed much. I remember Yoongi and Jungkook's house were nearby. And the right-hand side alley, I saw graffiti on the wall. Tae must have painted it. I went closer. I stopped in front of the painting. It was a rough sketch of a cold, emotionless face done with black paint. And I knew whose face it was. The owner of that face. I recalled seeing Jin at the hospital a couple of days ago. The map of the soul, Jin said. But the voice I heard wasn't Jin's. I heard someone else saying it, but I couldn't remember who. I felt nauseated. Who was it? I saw a face in the midst of the black clouds, the one that resembled the face in the graffiti. Right. The television man in the psychiatric ward. He'd said, "The map of the soul." I remembered now. The map of the soul, that was it. Sitting in front of the TV in the psychiatric ward lounge, he would say it again and again, devoid of any human warmth on his face. When someone asked him a question, he would have the same answer. "I don't remember." He didn't look anything like Jin, but for a moment, his face overlapped with Jin's. They had the same eyes, the soulless eyes. I went back to the convenience store. When I opened the door and ran in, the cashier stared at me. "Isn't Tae working today?" the cashier said. "He changed to the morning shift, saying he's got some important things to do. Something wrong?" It was my fault for not having called Tae. Was something wrong with him? I sat on a park bench across from the store and opened the chat room. I left a message. I found a clue to the map of the soul. Junie, 18 July, year 22. If I didn't believe in Tae's dream and something did happen, I probably would not be able to forgive myself. Tae called early in the afternoon. The rain that had slashed down for 5 days straight had softened to a drizzle. "You're going to do it today, right?" I met him at the Songju Station bus stop a little after 7. The rain finally stopped, and just the wind blew. It pushed away the black clouds, revealing the dark blue sky. At the bus stop, we ate the sandwich and gimbap Tay had brought. Their expirations were up or close to it. The train that had departed from Songju Station picked up speed and was gone out of our sight. We passed City Hall and got off at the bus stop next to the movie theater. The convenience store we talked about was about 100 meters away from the intersection. Strange senses of expectation and fear crisscrossed. Tay said he saw the future in his dreams. I said believing something which you find hard to believe, that's really believing it. But I was a realistic person. At different moments, I was overcome with seething doubt and disbelief, and I asked myself, do I believe Tay? And the answer was always the same. Look! Tay stopped and tugged my sleeve. I stopped too. Tay was pointing to the four-leaf clover logo, and beyond that, people were replacing a billboard. The energy drink was coming down, and a new billboard was going up. A canned coffee. We didn't know who began to run first. It was only about 40 or 50 meters away, and it wouldn't have made any difference if we got there faster. The canned coffee billboard or the building across from it would not disappear, but we were in a hurry to get there. We got to the building with the billboard, panting, and took a sweeping look at the place. It was late, but there were many passers-by. I said, let's go up. We can't see from here. We went into the building, got in the elevator, and headed to the rooftop. We'd been here before, but back then the metal door to the rooftop was locked, and all we could do was crane our necks out of the staircase window to get a look-see. But today, as they were replacing the billboard, the rooftop door was wide open. When we walked past the door, there was a loud metal clanking sound. Startled, we glanced at each other. The workmen were fixing the billboard. We saw the building across from us, City Hall on the left-hand side, and the railways across Songju City on the right. Behind us were a shopping mall, the county welfare center, and some commercial buildings. Nothing seemed taller than 7 stories. It must be one of them there. We scrutinized each building. You there! What are you doing there? The building's security guard approached us. Are you here for the billboard? And right as I was about to say something, Tay pulled me to his side. There, look over there. I looked where Tay pointed. A building in the distance between the shopping mall and the parking garage. We couldn't be sure it looked about 5 stories high. I looked at Tay, and we started running down from the rooftop. We took the elevator down and ran across the road. We got to the street between the shopping mall and the parking garage. It was uphill. It was a summer night. The typhoon had passed, leaving behind moisture in the air. We sweated, and our hearts pounded. Only when we got to the building did we turn around. We looked down on the 4-leaf clover and the canned coffee billboard. It was only a 5-story building, but we climbed uphill. The building was located on the top of the slope. If we were to go inside, we should be able to look down on the whole city. We looked up at the building. Some offices had lights on inside. Because it was close to City Hall, there were several CPA or law offices. The lights were on in the office on the very top 5th floor. And there was a familiar name hung out of the window in the office. The Office of National Assemblyman Kim Chang-jun. Who is that? Tay asked. You don't know? I looked at him. Tay looked at me with innocent, credulous eyes. From time to time, I would be simply baffled by Tay. He would be so brazen about things he didn't know, things I couldn't believe he didn't know. Tay had no qualms about looking at things which I would find too scary even to go too close to. And when no one would give you a helping hand, Tay wouldn't think twice before offering his help. I answered, he's Jin's dad. We walked up the emergency staircase to the 5th floor. We glanced down the hallway after coming out of the door. It wasn't a big building. Light was coming in through the glass door on one side of the hallway. A huge picture was hung on the left side of the glass door. A picture of Kim Chang-jun smiling and shaking hands with his voters. A sentence was printed above his head. When you go alone, you can go fast. When you go together, you can go further. Together, further. On the right side of the door was the bulletin board for civil petitions. The petitions were taped under the National Future Party's logo with "A Politician Who Listens" written next to it. Making Songju a city of innovation for the successful building of technology belt. I was reading the other stuff when I heard a sound inside the office. Startled, Tay and I hid ourselves. 2 men in white dress shirts came out, taking out cigarettes. They must have worked at the office. One of them opened the door wide. "We shouldn't be caught smoking by Mr. Song. The aide is not going to be here at this time of the day. We can smoke and come back in a jiffy." When the men went down the elevator, we scampered into the office. There was a reception desk and a round table behind that. A door behind the desks to the left had "conference room" written on it. When we opened that door, would it really be the place that Tay had seen in his dream? I turned around and looked at him. Tay, 18 July, year 22. We opened the door with "conference room" written on it. There was a big, round table with chairs around it, and from the window we could see the whole city, including the four-leaf clover logo, the canned coffee billboard, and the Yangtze Stream. Junie stood next to me and said, "Wow, this must be the place. But what should we do now?" "Tay, does this make sense? Does this make you remember anything else?" He walked around the office looking at this and that. I felt numb as I looked out the window. I heard Junie's voice as if it were coming from far away. As if we were under the seawater, things seemed surreal as they swayed. My breathing slowed down, and things looked hazy. As if I was dreaming. My body floated up and slowly spun. Jin was sitting in a chair, talking on the phone. He smiled faintly and stood up. In front of him was a folder. Songju City Redevelopment. The moment he picked it up, all the lights in the city vanished. "Tay!" Hearing my name, I snapped out of it. Junie's voice was low but urgent. We heard sounds coming from outside the office. "Yes, Mr. Song, the printer in the conference room? Yes, we'll put the document inside the cabinet and lock it. No, don't worry." "Hide!" Junie lay low behind the sofa. I rolled to hide behind the cabinet. The 2 men came back and turned the lights on. I closed my eyes and made myself smaller. When I opened my eyes, I saw printed pages below the printer. On the bottom read, "Songju City Redevelopment Plan, page 3. I crawled out from behind the cabinet. My eyes met Junie's. We gestured as if to ask what the hell I was up to and to go back. The men were still standing by the door, looking inside the room. I extended my arm and grabbed the pile of papers from the printer. Junie, 18 July, year 22. What paper did he mean? The man who turned on the lights looked around the room. It's a top secret document about the redevelopment plan, but he had a problem with the printer. It hasn't been printed yet? I wish we'd be done with this redevelopment soon. Too many things are so complicated. If one thing gets leaked, everyone will be headed to the big house. It's so risky. Maybe I should call Mr. Song again. After the men turned off the light and left, Tay slowly crawled out from behind the cabinet. Tay was holding the papers in his hand. I gestured to him to leave the papers. Pointing to the papers, Tay mouthed the word, "You mean this?" I nodded, but the idiot rolled up the papers and stuck them under his belt. "Idiot! Put them down. I mouthed the words as big as I could, but Tay's face showed he couldn't understand what I was telling him. Tay gestured for me to leave, and we headed for the door. Tay, 18 July, year 22. The men were talking on the phone by the desk. Junie and I stayed close to the floor and tiptoed quietly toward the door. Fortunately, the door was still wide open. We passed the hallway and headed to the stairs. We ran down the 5 flights of stairs like hell. Even when we got outside, we still ran. We ran through narrow alleys and repeated, making the left turn and then the right turn. It had become easy for us to get away. How many times did we get chased by the police? When I said that, Junie gestured, throwing a punch at me. I fumbled under my shirt and brought out the papers. Junie said we should throw them away now. But why? They might be related to Jin. And to that, he said, didn't you hear those men? It's top secret. We shouldn't get involved in something so complicated. It was then the police showed up around the corner. After scrutinizing us up and down, the officer reported on his radio. 2 men in the late teens or early 20s. Match the descriptions. We'll take them to the station ASAP. See? Yeah. Psh, psh. I wanted you to feel that. Hobie, 19 July, year 22. Tay and Junie were sitting on the steps in front of the police station. Seeing me limp, Tay bolted up and came running. What's wrong with your leg? That's no big deal. I sprained my ankle when I had to carry someone. Junie scratched his head and said, if I'd known, I wouldn't have called you. I'm sorry. I shrugged and raised my hands. Tay asked, you came empty-handed? What do you mean? You called in the middle of the night to pick you up, and now that I'm here, you complain about me being empty-handed? Junie said, he means you don't have tofu with you. What? Oh, what? I looked at Tay in utter disbelief. It's not like you got dragged to the police station for the first time. You want tofu now? Making it obvious that he was disappointed, Tay said, I keep coming back to this place because I haven't had tofu. What? How many times do I have to tell you? Junie tapped my shoulder and said, let's go. What? We went to the 24-hour gimbap place in front of the station and sat together at a table. So what happened? Why were you in this neighborhood? And why did you get dragged to the police station? Junie had called me a little after 5 in the morning. He apologized for waking me up, but asked me to come down to the Songju police station. With his mouth full, Tay was about to explain, but Junie covered Tay's mouth with his hand and told me what had happened. So, did they catch you? In response to my question, Junie said, no, we managed to get out of the place, but what happened next came out of nowhere. A building security guard near the place reported to the police that 2 strange men were seen going in and out of the buildings. True, we had made a spectacle of ourselves as we went around the place. We walked into every building and opened every door we could. It would have been odd if no one had suspected us. Tay said, we lied and said we were looking for a place to spend the night, and that wasn't really a capital crime, while acting like we were really delinquents. I asked, and what did you do with the papers? Tay glanced in Junie's direction, and with a downcast look, he said, Junie threw them away. After they had arrived at the police station, Junie had dumped them inside an open door while the officers were not looking. What kind of papers were they? I asked. I don't know, something about the redevelopment plan. Well, why did you steal them in the first place? Tay looked at Junie. Junie sighed and said, Hobie, this might be hard to believe, but... Junie, 20 July, year 22. Tay had stolen the redevelopment papers for no particular reason. No, Tay might have had a desperate reason, but all he could say was he felt as if he had to. He felt that Jin was becoming strange because of it. Hobie looked at me as if to say he didn't understand what the hell we were talking about. And 2 days passed after that. The typhoon was gone, and there was no reason for us to roam the city. I came back to my routine, going to the library in the morning and working at the gas station in the afternoon. Tay texted me about this and that, but he wasn't able to find any new leads. He was coming up with far-fetched ideas like his usual self. Only when I went to work did I realize what we'd done. The news was on TV in the gas station office. The scandal involving the Songju City redevelopment plan. They had discovered a document disclosing an agreement that the police would not interfere even if violence were committed by hired servicemen. The reporter said someone had left the concerned document in the reporter's lounge inside the police station. The police station, the reporter's lounge, and the redevelopment plan. I dumped that document into the reporter's hand. The redevelopment plan had already been made public. They planned to clear out the containers and illegal shanties by the railways to build apartments. It wasn't the first time hearing about such a plan, but I'd been all talk with no action. The people living in the area trusted it would stay that way. Or they just didn't have an alternative or an answer to the problem. When my boss came into the office, a man with slightly gray hair started a press conference on TV. His name was provided over his chest on the screen. National Assembly member Kim Chang-jun, Jin's dad. He was the man in the picture hanging outside that office. And a blueprint of the development was on TV, followed by an explanation that the redevelopment of Area 4 would soon be underway. To solve housing problems for the people of Songju and to accommodate an influx of people for the technology belt in Area 2, the redevelopment must be underway. I would appreciate your cooperation and continued interest. Go ahead, just bulldoze everything in your way. Well, they're going to bury that document about permitting violence after this interview. There are more than just 1 or 2 people waiting for the redevelopment to start. My boss clicked his tongue at the TV. Still, how could they force those people out of their homes? Kim Chang-jun wasn't like that before. Scary how power changes people. Hobie, 20 July, year 22. After my evening shift, I stopped by the Yangji Children's Home. I brought an armful of cookies and let the children in the living room share them, and then I headed to the director's office. The air in the office was completely different from the living room. The news was on TV about the Songju City redevelopment. I saw Kim Chang-jun's face briefly on TV. The director turned off the TV in a hurry and asked me if I would like something to drink. How is our aunt doing? I changed the topic on purpose. After she recovers from the surgery, we're going to do everything we can for her. Hobie, she said she'd do her best to get better, and we should all cheer up and hope for the best. A loud noise came from the living room. The children were fighting over the cookies. One boy banged open the director's office door and barged in. Hangyol, the oldest boy, pointed to the living room TV and said, Area 4 is where our orphanage is. But why is it they haven't even mentioned us? They don't have a place for our orphanage on the new map. A couple more boys ran in and one of them said, We're moving? Another boy said, Are we moving to a bigger place? The director answered them, You don't have to worry about anything. The aunts and I will take care of everything. Kids, I have things to talk about with Hobie, so why don't you go outside and play soccer? And after sending the kids out, she plopped on a chair opposite me. What's going to happen to us? I asked with my eyes on her. Well, nothing has been decided yet. They might build a new orphanage in Area 1. It might take some time, though. Well, how long? Meanwhile, they have us scattered to different places. Well, but Mr. Kim Chang-jun, the assemblyman, said, well, I know. He promised us to build a new orphanage in Area 4 so that we could stay together. And downcast, the director said, we just have to see how things develop. Jungkook, 20 July, year 22. I limped around the hospital hallway. I'd be discharged a couple of days from now. I couldn't go to sleep. The surveillance video the police had shown me, the witness who had disappeared, and my friends who wouldn't tell me things straight. I walked to tire myself out so that I could shake off these thoughts. Suddenly, I saw an iron door in front of me. I didn't know I'd walked up to the top of the emergency stairway. I opened the door to the rooftop. Sitting on the railing, I looked up at the night sky and slowly stood up. I took one step and another on the railing. I walked, dragging my left foot in a cast. Feeling unbalanced, my body kept swaying sideways. I looked down. The cars in the parking lot looked like small toys, and the people looked so small and vulnerable that I could squash them with my finger. I felt a sudden spasm in my knees and lurched from side to side. I extended both of my arms to regain my balance. I came down from the railing, sweating. I couldn't understand why I'd gone up there in the first place. What if I'd fallen off? I turned and saw the night view of Songju over the railing. I wouldn't die even if I were to make someone happy. I spat out these words to the lights. Even if someone had to die, I had no intention of being that someone. I grabbed my crutches and headed back to the iron door. And as I walked down the stairs, the sensor lights turned on. Hobie, 21 July, year 22. The director and I spent the whole morning in front of City Hall, but to no avail. The City Hall people kept telling us nothing had been decided, so we should wait. We asked to talk with the mayor, but it was obvious that was not going to happen. But we couldn't go back empty-handed. We sat on the stairs to City Hall with the sun beating down on us until the former brothers from the orphanage showed up. They said they'd stayed in place of the director, but she just shook her head. The mayor showed up past 3, but he just walked right past us as if our wait had been for nothing. We wanted to follow him in, but security and his aides stopped us. Mr. Mayor, please wait. Our orphanage. Yangji Children's Home is our home. You're taking away our home, we screamed, but he didn't pay any attention. As I was coming down the stairs, Jimin called again. I'd forgotten to call him back. I didn't have the presence of mind to call or talk to anyone. Are you busy? Hearing Jimin's voice, I realized how peaceful my world had been just a couple days ago. We'd had misunderstandings and squabbles, but nothing this desperate. I'm a bit preoccupied because of the orphanage. What's up? After some hesitation, Jimin said, Nothing much. I couldn't get a hold of you. You know what Jin said? Jimin, I'm a bit busy right... At that moment, someone came down from the stairs and said, We should go to that assemblyman. He's the one who made the announcement for the plan. That assemblyman? I realized then that the assemblyman, Kim Chang-jun, was Jin's father. And we will end today on page 141. The surface of reality and the other side of the dream. Say goodnight to Chum Chum. The surface of reality and the other side of the dream. I think we are just about halfway through the notes. Book 2. I am thoroughly enjoying it. But boy, I tell you what, after we finish with this, and after we finish with the webtoon, and what else I may decide to dip my fingers into, proverbially speaking, BU-wise, I look forward to giving you my thoughts about this whole thing. I do. Not to say that there will be a giant connection of puzzle pieces and all this good stuff. I'm sure there's a bunch that will still go over my head, but I look forward to saying many things to all of you. I'll give you a hint on one of those things. Just a hint, and it's subtle. That's all. That's just a hint, and that's all you get for right now. But I look forward to that day. I couldn't help it. That was too good. Don't boo me. Man, okay. I feel like this is the perfect end of today. We had a full day. I know I took an hour break, but I think we did what? So 5:42. So just about 4.5 hours today, I think. Something like that. 5 hours. It was a lot. We did a lot today. We did some Hobie on the street. We had some discussions, had a little story time. We got some Discord requests. We got some Boop Club. Good times. Tomorrow, as far as right now goes, tomorrow at, let's go 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will do Killing Voice Sunday. Chill, mellow, bring your coffee, bring your tea, and we'll do our usual stuff per Sunday's tradition. I'm Roscoe. I'm your buddy. Look out for each other. Still have a long journey ahead of us.